So we give a closing to our gathering today. We ask the Lord for His word, and I'll be reading from Matthew 1:1. Matthew 1:1. The roots of Jesus. This is a document giving the names of the ancestors of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Sarah, their mother was Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron, and Hezron of Ram. Ram was the father of Aminadab, Aminadab of Nahshon, and Nahshon of Zalmon. The word of the Lord. When we read the scriptures and we read a passage like this, we always wonder, how do I deal with this? You know, it's information and it's important information. How do I make it spiritual? Because it is information that is very human and it's related to God and it's all in a spiritual language, but it's very basic. So we expect the gospel and we expect the scriptures to give us information that is going to help us build our soul and build our faith. So we ask, how can I build my faith and how can I use this in my personal life just by knowing all those names and understanding how all this came about when God Himself came from heaven, and that relationship with all those human beings at the end, they really don't mean much if I look at it from the Spirit, because He came from heaven. The Spirit of God came from heaven, came into Our Lady through the action of the Holy Spirit and touched all those generations that were leading to Him. So if we really think about what it means spiritually, then the answer to all of this is obedience. We have to take everything that is revealed to us in obedience, and that's the best thing. It's like when we are children, a lot of the things that the parents are telling us, we don't understand, because they are not in our world yet. They're telling us, make sure you learn to do this way, because if you learn to get up on time when I tell you, if you learn to go to bed when I tell you, later on when you are a grown up, you're going to have a discipline, and you're going to be a person that is reliable, it's going to be honest, it's going to be always punctual, it's going to do the things right, because you learn since you're little to do the things that you are told to do. And all the things that in the beginning don't make much sense, because we want to stay later up, we want to get up later too, and things like that we want to rebel against. We want to do a little more of what we're not supposed to do, and we don't find it too bad to do that. We find it that it's probably overboard to get us in such a strict discipline. And sometimes we think our parents are really too much in some of the areas and exaggerating. Later on, when we grow up and become adults, we know how important all those rules were, and that education, that formation. And the areas that we were weak in obedience are the areas we are weak humanly later on as adults. So the scriptures are the education of the soul. So everything I just said is the education of our humanity, the human side of us. So the scriptures educate us spiritually. I was saying before how important it is to believe that what we have here in the scriptures has been given to us by God Himself. That He spoke through the prophets, He spoke through every evangelist and St. Paul and all the letters that we have in the New Testament, and everything was inspired by God. Now, through the years, theology brings in elements that could question areas of the gospel, areas of the scriptures, and those questions are in our heart troublesome sometimes, but at the end, on the long run, if we are basic, elemental and simple, we just go for what is given to us as a fact. You know that a saint, the difference between a saint and somebody that is not a saint is that the saint always believes everything. You know, someone comes and gives a big lie to a saint, and the saint is all excited about that, like, really? And believes everything. Who is to lose there? The liar, not the saint, right? The saint is innocent and is believing everything you're saying, is even getting excited about such a great story and hoping that he's enjoying it. The liar is the one losing because the lion is making that up, and before the Lord, who is who? Before the Lord, within that action, the action of the liar and the action of the innocent. So when we embrace the scriptures as they are given to us, we embrace them and we say, the Lord gave me this book, and that suffices. Then when we read it, we read the scriptures and say, the Lord is talking to me. Now, if my reason gets involved in this, then I will have to go and say, I wonder if this really took place. This probably was made up by some crazy guy, and now passed along through the years, and now I have to take this as the word of God. That could be possible. 2 more join and say, you're right, that could be possible. 100 more join, and then they make a new Bible, right? Because that's the way it ends up being. They come up with something new. Does it make a difference? I mean, it does make a difference. When you have been given by tradition the understanding of a given way of life, and you walk on that way of life, which is marked by morals and values, by integrity that is related to build up a better human being every day, someone that is going to elevate himself or herself towards the glory of God by walking in obedience and meticulously making sure that you are becoming a better person every day, because that is the goal of religion. Religion comes along as a path of teaching, and then religion is to make you spiritual. A lot of people get stuck with religion only and never become spiritual. Those are the Pharisees, right? And we have a lot of Pharisees in Christianity, lots of them. They didn't die. They kept on growing and multiplying. They came into the church. They kept on going. You see, some of the visitors, the friends of Peter that came to Antioch, when St. Paul was really upset with Peter because he was discriminating the uncircumcised, because some friends of James came to visit Peter and they were friends of the circumcision, and they used to discriminate the uncircumcised, and those were those areas of Pharisee people that were coming into the church and discriminating others and bringing pride and bringing all these traditions against the others, and all of that continues going through the church today. We still have those confrontations between very holy people sometimes. St. Paul and St. Peter were 2 saints, and still they had human problems, They had, their humanity sometimes was in trouble among them, and they had confrontations. You see the apostles walking with Jesus, and you know that there were discussions and arguments there. Sometimes they were trying to figure out who was the most important one, and 2 of them were trying to sit on the right and the left of Jesus, and that created all kinds of conflicts between them. And so, because that's our humanity. But it's very important to understand how vital, basic and elemental is to be a very simple Catholic. Very simple one. Very humble. Because that is going to save us from a lot of troubles in these times that we live in. These are the times of confusion. Big confusion. We have too many voices talking to us. And our church is the most magnificent gift we have. The Catholic Church contains the most incredible gifts because it contains them all together. Just think about this. When we speak about the Catholic Church, we speak about a church that is over 2,000 years old. And it comes from the very beginning as one body, one church. Areas of the church have gone through the window, some areas. But there is a church that has been always together. That church from the beginning. And it's not only over 2,000 years old. It's as old as God talking to us. Because it's Judeo-Christian church. It comes from Judaism. So it's a very incredible old tradition. And it's the work of prophets. And it's the work of hundreds of thousands of martyrs and battles. Because Christianity is also the Maccabees. Christianity is also every area of the Old Testament. That's Christianity. Christianity is every prophet of the Old Testament. That's Christianity. Because they were all waiting for Christ in the bosom of Abraham to be taken to heaven. Why? Because they were part of Christ. They were in the mystical body of the Lord. Therefore, Christianity is all the history of this Bible. That's Christianity. So if that is Christianity, then that's how seriously we have to understand sacred tradition. And sacred tradition gives us the safe ground of living within a church that has the blood circulating through the times and it's never been interrupted. It's never been cut off by reason, by intellectual pride, by any kind of philosophies or ideologies of circumstances that are human, that rebel against tradition and against our Judeo roots, Judaic roots, as is happened in the Reformation and it happened in many areas of Christianity today. There are enemies of the church that still are within Christ. And then today we are confronted with something even worse, because this is for the dark world the era of Aquarius. Probably you heard about that. This is the time of the witches and the sorcerers and the dark. That's the season, the big season. They came into Aquarius. They claim that, right? And it's been announced by the Theosophists, by all the esoteric forces. They said they were coming in year 2000 into the era of Aquarius. So Pisces was over. And Pisces is supposed to be Christianity, and Pisces is supposed to be religion, traditions, and all of these, the three religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. We're supposed to be gone already. We're supposed to be non-existent. Now it's magic, and esoteric sciences, and occult, and all of this is what is supposed to be going on for the forces of the dark. See, the forces of the dark have always been active since original sin among us. So it's nothing new that they are here, because they are here all the time. But the thing is, they change with the times. They change according to the seasons of humanity, the cycles, and they have a different language. They express themselves different. When we talk about New Age, we talk about a language, the language of evil. There's nothing new about New Age. It's called New Age because it's the falling of grace that comes all the way from original sin. Because Christianity is called New Creation, not New Age. So the difference between New Age and New Creation is that there's nothing new about New Age. But it's something very new about New Creation, because it's actually a new creation. But New Age is as old as original sin. So the devil changed his languages. Now he's speaking to us in a specific language, the era of Aquarius. So now all these magicians, and you can see that everywhere. Oh, this is all over the planet. Wherever I go, I have been to 51 countries within the Catholic Church. There hasn't been one single country where New Age hasn't entered the Catholic Church. Everywhere has entered. Has destroyed hundreds of convents and monasteries and parishes and priests and vocations of all kinds have destroyed New Age. Sorcery, all kinds of practices of the dark, paganismos, they destroy the families, they do all kinds of weird things. And people embrace it because it's soothing, because it's attractive, it's relaxing, sometimes it's even healing, and all of that. And now, if we are aware of the forces we are dealing with now, we know that the biggest enemy we have is the occult, sorcery, magic. That's the biggest enemy. It's always been an enemy, but it's never been on as now. Because now they are on in a very seasonable way. That means they are on in the fullness of steam. They came in with all they have, because they are supposed to be out in the open. You see, before they were supposed to be occult, on the ground. Now, no, they come out in the open. That's the mission. So they are on a mission. And the mission is to give it to everyone. So they want to baptize you with the era of Aquarius. And what is that? That's all this nonsense of the tarot readings and the astrologies and the Reikis and the everything that has to do with pagan traditions, magic, anything that has to do away from what is the basic truth, away from Christianity, away from Judaism, away from anything that has to do with Moses, with the law, with the commandments. That's why within the context of the truth, we have only three religions, which is Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Those three are on Moses' law. We are ahead of Moses' law because we embrace the Messiah. We are no longer under the Italian law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We have forgiveness because of Christ. Then Jews and Muslims still haven't embraced the Messiah, so they don't forgive one another. That's why they go an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. They will be at war all the time until Jesus comes back. They're never going to have peace. Because by law, by Mosaic law, they have to take revenge on anybody that does anything to them. So imagine the account they have. It's never ending. Because a Jew goes across and kills a Muslim, they have to kill 10 Jews. You see? By law, by Mosaic law. We as Christians, we have a big account with them, just with Iraq alone. So, you name the mess that we are in. It's incredible. But then, here is what is taking place right now. First, the devil got in between the three religions and got us one against another, like this. So he created this mess. And then outside that, he's got all the forces of evil in fashion now. They are fashion. They are in. They are all in the open. So it's very normal to be gay. Yes, and to show it to everybody and to invite everybody to be gay. It's very normal to kill a baby, abort a baby. If it's not convenient to be born, kill him, and then if you say something about it, you can't even be put in jail because you are discriminating people. You cannot even speak about homosexuality. You can be put in jail by that in many places, in many countries. And then all kinds of crimes are justified now. Justified by law. By law. So, in order to deal with all of this, that is going to get worse, Canada passed a law of hate literature. I don't know if you heard. And they want to do it in many other countries. Hate literature means that if I read the passage of St. Paul here, where it says, drunkards and homosexuals and this will never enter the kingdom of God, the person there that gets offended can file a suit against me and put me in prison. Because I read that in the pulpit in church. Okay, so, and this is a fact. I'm not just making this up, but this is a fact. It's something that is happening. So, now, people are getting away with things like this. There are forces of evil that have been around for ages, like the Masons, and other type of things that are evil, you know, that worship the devil and do sacrifices of blood and steal the Eucharist from the church, take it and do rituals and black masses and horrible things, you know. And not only them, many others that have these kind of practices. All of these practices today, even though they're still doing the same evil, and they're doing horrible things, they are legal, absolutely legal. You know, satanic churches, the satanic cult, satanic religion is legal. And you know, black masses, satanic masses sacrifice human beings. It's in the satanic Bible. And they are legalized. So they don't pretend to legalize the murder, but they legalize the religion. But if they legalize satanism as a religion, they legalize everything it contains. So if it's legal to have a satanic church, then that means it's legal to do what they do. So everything they do. And what is a satanic mass? A satanic mass is a sacrifice of blood, human blood. Somehow they do that. Somehow. And obviously the devil is going to get it to do it in a way they're not going to get caught. Because that's the way they do it. See? So all these elements are elements of earthly life. They always been here. Always been here. The difference is that today we are at the very end of the end times. So this is boiling. Everything is out in the open, and the most incredible demonic presence are on earth. And this is not to be scared, because I'm not giving you a message of doom. This is only to be awakened and to understand how strong we have to be. We cannot be lukewarms. There's no way we can be mediocres. We cannot afford to be anything less than a saint in order to fight the good fight. If you want to defend yourself from the evil that is active on earth, you have to also go on that level. If the evil is so large, how are you going to defend yourself from that evil? You have to become very holy. It's the only way. If they are so evil, what is the opposite of evil? What is the opposite? So, good. And to be good is to be holy. Holy meaning holy. A saint. Becoming holy. And we spoke before that we on our own, we are not able to become saints in the fullness of it. We need the Lord. And that's why we have this precious church, the sacraments. Imagine what a gift that we can go to Mass every day and take communion every day. I mean, who's got that? That's not very simple, you know. It's an incredible gift, because that means you get the power, if you want to, if you understand what the Lord is giving us to go through this battle, you can go and bring the Eucharist into your life every day and strengthen yourself to fight this incredible fight, this beautiful fight, because it is great. It's great because this fight involves salvation of souls. And every soul around you is on your account, because you can make a difference. You can truly make a difference. You know how it is in a family. He who is bringing in the light of love and compassion is salvation for the whole family. Sometimes we see a family of 10, and sometimes I give this example. And mom is more concerned and more interested in those children that are succeeding, right? They are really smart, they are making it in the world, they seem to get a hold of the goods very fast, the goods of the world. They seem to be ambitious, they seem to be fast in grasping everything and achieving every little goal they set up to achieve. And people seem to be approving and accepting them very easy and all of that. And those children that are kind of slow, that are not as bright, that are not as greedy and as interested in all the other things and not as ambitious, they are not as attracted to mom. And before the Lord's eyes, those that are not the most sparky about the things of the world, those that are not the brightest about the things of the world, those that are not the most successful with people and things around, they could be the saints of the house. They could be the ones that are actually bringing salvation to everyone. Because the goods are not up here. They are more enchanted with the things within themselves, inner self and the spirit. They are more spiritual. It's not always the case, because there are cases where we have a son that is very successful in the world and is a very spiritual person. So sometimes the Lord has a combination of the two, because the Lord also has great administrators of material wealth that belong to God. And we know, thanks to those good managers of material wealth, we have convents and seminaries, and we have monasteries and churches being built, and great acts of charity, because some rich people that belong to God, that manage the wealth of the world for the glory of God. So I'm not saying that doing that is evil. I'm saying that we have to be attentive as to where the true spiritual life is moving, how it moves. So today, in the world that we live in today, we have to be attentive to the signs that we have. We live in a world that is going to become more and more of the world and less of God. To speak about God and to be of God is going to be something very difficult to sustain, to live. I tell you, a lot of areas of religions are going to disappear. Because if you don't have a strong foundation, the world is going to swallow you. Because materialism is going to be so strong, that people are going to be stolen from God. Very easy. They fall asleep. Too comfortable, too easy, and especially science justifying everything as to why you are to be what you are. Sloppy, lazy, whatever you are is justifiable because you have a condition, and they tell you why. Sometimes they even tell you it's chemical, right? Chemical imbalance, that's why you're lazy, right? Oh yes, and they give you all kinds. You go to the shrink and they give you all kinds of justification why you slap people every time you get upset, right? They tell you, you have to let it out. You say, make sure you don't slap them too hard. But and then you go home and say, Mom, I was told this is normal. So just watch me, you know. Just be careful as to when I get a little upset. So, and this is the way we are really building this world, like that, you know, justifying wrong, making it right, and it's not that way. You see, we cannot fool ourselves. So therefore, I think that this is the most challenging time. The Lord is bringing the goods too. The devil is bringing the goods, yes, because the Lord says there had never been so many demons active on earth as today. Because there are so many people that belong to them. So they are active. Every person that is in sin has active demons working through that person. So there are many people living in the dark. And they bring all those demons. They are like ladders. Demons come up and down through them. So the Lord is bringing also the graces and the mercy on His people, on humanity in general. And those are the faithful, the remnant. So the remnant today is challenged to become true, faithful children of God. And true, faithful children of God is to become servants, to really give into the spirit of service, and to stop whining and expecting everybody to serve us. Because you see, when you begin to be a good servant, you stop being offended. You stop being hurt. When you are not a good servant, you're always offended and hurt. Everybody always hurts you. And you spend long times explaining to people how hurt you are. Oh, you can have a conversation for hours, explaining how they walked in and just slapped the door and this and the things he said and this. Oh, and it's like, and it hurts, and then you whine and you say it and you repeat it. And you can say the same thing for hours. And cry and get into a crisis, right? And all of that, what is all of that? Self-love. That's what it is. Self-love. If you have a spirit of service, they will never offend you. Never. So, it's the greatest gift of all when you give and you don't expect anything from anybody. See, God is the perfect lover, and He is the teacher of love. God is the perfect lover. Who is the perfect lover? The perfect lover wakes up before the other and sets everything up for the other, leaves it in place. When the other wakes up, finds everything in place so perfectly, don't even notice somebody else did it, right? And then the perfect lover never comes back to say, did you find the paper on the table? Was the coffee hot? Like all of that. You see? And then if you don't recognize any of that, say, never appreciate anything I do, right? I go, rah! Why? Because everything was done not in a spirit of service. It was done only because wanted attention. Wanted attention. And there's no love there. If you're serving the other just to call attention, and to be applauded, and to be admired, and to be loved, and to be hugged, and to be pampered, that's not love. That has nothing to do with love. That's self-love. So that's why, in order to combat every demon, in order to get rid of every demon in your life, you have to kill self-love. And then you see the divine lover in your life, the one that is perfect in love. You just put everything together in a way where they don't even notice it was you. You never seen God appearing in your closet in the morning. Hi, I just gave you that clothes, right? And you wake up in the morning and say, good morning, I just gave you one more day, right? No, He's the perfect lover. The perfect lover. He's so invisible that He is actually perfectly visible. Because we cannot see Him because we are imperfect. But He's perfectly visible. And He is the perfect lover. Everything is done. See, everything is there, already there. And we think we did it. He does everything so perfect that we think we did it. So we go to work. You know how people sometimes go to church and give money and they think they're giving their money to God? Yeah, they think, well, and you think twice before you give something. Because you're sure that money is your money, right? When that money God gave you, right? God gave you. And then how do you pass the test? When you realize that you are exercising something He's teaching you to exercise. You go to church and then the angels are watching. I wonder how He's going to handle it this time, right? Then you go like there. Oh, then you're thinking twice. 5? 1, 2. At the end, they go by very quick. They go by very quick. Nothing. And that is, you see, the teaching, the lesson of love has to be perfectionated. We have to master it. Because it begins with all these little things. And that's how we deform love. That's how we twist it and turn it into something else. And so dying to self, working really carefully as to understanding divine love, is the calling to defend ourselves from the times we live in today. Because the only way to achieve that holiness and to be perfect is just to give into the spirit of service. And make sure you're always there to serve everybody. Always there. I say, sometimes I preach sometimes I've been in places where there are 500 people in a church, right? And I spoke for 3 hours. And then an old monk comes around and he'll say, Marino is going to pray over each one of you. And I go like this. And I say, okay. And I go and I say, this must be right? I'm sure I can do it. Because if the Lord set me up like this, no, He's going to do it. Because I know that's God talking, right? So I go and I actually do it. Right? I actually do it. Obviously, when I walk away from there, I don't feel my legs. I don't feel anything. I am like a zombie going to bed. I don't go to bed, I faint. But I tell you, if I will fall into pride, I will say, no, I cannot do it, like now. Something like that. And people that come to ask you questions, sometimes people have a monologue. And they always have the same question, right? And you always give them the same answer. And if you find them 20 times, they have the same question. And you give them the same answer, right? So what is about that? About that is that you always have to listen and you always have to answer. That's what it is. Regardless of what you're being asked, and regardless if the question and the answer are the same. The act of love is to do it. And to be there, to listen. It's like you have a daughter that is an alcoholic. And she calls and gives you a hard time on the phone. And you have to listen to the same rap every time she gets drunk, right? Mom, yes, I'm here. I'm really depressed. Yeah, I know. We know that. It's one of the most common things today. I was one of them that used to call my mother and I was drunk. And going, I feel really down. My mother, yes. And then she will at the end say, why don't you drink a little less? Then I will hang up. Right? I will hang up because I didn't want to hear that. But you see, we have to understand it's about listening to people. We have to listen to people. Even if they come with the most annoying things. Love is about giving them an ear. It's about that. Because you see, you listen to them, that doesn't mean you're going to agree with the wrong they might be doing. Because some people are doing wrong and they're talking about things they're not supposed to even be talking. But the fact that you love them and you pay attention to them, that alone helps them out. But the thing is, if you are counseling people to change, and they keep on calling you to tell you that they are not changing, telling you things that don't seem to be what they're supposed to be doing from the counseling that you're giving, that's when you have to stop talking, right? Because then you're going to allow them to do the wrong by just listening to them. So we have to have a good discernment as to how much we can listen of what from who. There are levels of that, because we also don't want to fall into a sin of omission. But the exercise of love and charity has to be weighed according to the circumstance and the moment and the person and the events around that particular action. That understanding and discernment God gives us if we are faithful. That's why it's so important to take communion as often as we can and to go to confession as often as we can. Because those exercises of those two sacraments give us perfect discernment. You see, the more you kneel and humiliate yourself, the more humble you become. And the more communion you take, the more wisdom you get. Because more of God, less of you. You see, the more you humiliate yourself, the less of you. Because you, what will be you? You will be the one that won't kneel. That's you. So what is the Lord? The one that brings you to kneel. That's the Lord in you. So the more you kneel and the more communion, the more God in you, the less you in you. Less of you. So we are to empty ourselves of self and fill ourselves with God. And that process of doing that, we do by disappearing. Remember, think about it, how present you are. It's like you are here. And think about how intense is your presence right now here. How much do you want to project yourself right now? And that's what you have to die to. When you walk into a room and there are people there, just figure out how intense you are as to your presence. How intense. Are you just really attempted to make sure you're being acknowledged and everybody knows is Peter walking by, right? It's like, and then whatever that is, or Lucy just showing up, you know? You see, if you think about that, then you can really bring the volume down. Bring the volume down and be less of you, much less of you. Less of Peter, less of Lucy. You know, you walk in and try to be nothing, to disappear. You're not important. You're not supposed to be acknowledged by anybody. You're not even supposed to be noticeable by anybody. Not supposed to be noticed. And you go and sit in a place that is humble and do that. And that is an exercise that will really help you out, because that will bring a lot of peace into your life. You come to visit your relatives, don't expect them to approve anything you do, anything you say. Don't worry if they tell you you're getting weight. Don't worry if they don't like your shirt or your dress, you know. Don't worry about any of that, you know. Just go there and be unconditionally present. Don't make a deal out of anything, and just be there humbly, being present to love, because you came to acknowledge them as your relatives, right? And that's your presence. It's a love presence. You know, when you come to visit people, you are acknowledging that they are part of your life. That's good enough. It's a great statement. Words, like St. Francis of Assisi say, use words if you have to, if necessary. Those are the last things you use. So, you just use, your presence is love. It's a lot of love. You see sometimes a father sitting in the living room with a child, and the silence between the two is more powerful than a million words. That silence, that love, that company, Dad is with me in the living room for 2 hours. We're doing nothing. We're just hanging out. We're just sitting there. That's a beautiful thing, you know. Sometimes Dad will speak to a child for 2 hours and just fill their ears with all kinds of ideas, and the child doesn't get not even one there. It's going like, I wonder what all this is about, you know. And then goes home, goes to bed, tired, exhausted. But if that silence of love between a parent and a child is more powerful sometimes than a million words. That I don't mean to say you don't have to speak to your children. Yes. But you know what I mean by that. The power of love is not exactly in the words or the things you do. It's mostly in the things you don't do. See, because just being there is more powerful than trying to be there. It's more powerful than making sure you want to everybody to know that you're there. That has no power. That loses the power. Because you come there to visit your mom. Hi mom, how are you? Well, I was supposed to go to the bank and do all these things, but I figure I come and see you for a little bit. You know, I'm really busy today. And then you cannot charge up and charge the visit, right? You're making sure your mother know that you were very busy, but you took a little time for her, right? So you kind of charging for that visit. So and you do things very subliminal. Sometimes we don't want to visit someone and we call, how are you? Your mom is sick. You call, mom, how are you? I'm a little better. All right, so I see you tomorrow. You don't have to go because she's not that ill today, right? And things like that. I know this probably sounds silly, but I'm just giving you examples as to what Divine Master is teaching us, how to die to self in order to achieve holiness. We have to become holy. And people may ask themselves, how do I become holy? What is that? Where do they sell that? You know? How can I get a hold of that? Do they sell that where? You know, it's like, and then holiness is something very simple. It's just to do what is right. And what is right is everything that has to do with everybody else's. That's what is right. If you put everybody else's first and you last, you are walking in a path of holiness. If God is more important than everything, you are walking in a path of holiness. If everything that happens in your life is understood in God's will, you are walking in a path of holiness. If you are attentive not to break any laws to God because you have fear of God, because you know you have to be obedient to God because God told you so, then you are in a path of holiness. You are in obedience. And all of these things amount to a very basic rule. And it is that we have been given the truth as Catholics. And therefore we have to live up to that. So I believe that to conclude these reflections of today, I would say the Lord is giving us very specific basic information to each one of us to go through these times. And it is to become very humble, simple, Catholic, sacramental. Go to confession as often as you can. And make sure you have a very close relationship with the Eucharist. If you're not hungry for the Eucharist, go on your knees and beg the Lord to give you that hunger. Because if you're not hungry for the Eucharist, that means you are eating yourself. You see, you are filled with self-love. And that's why you don't have hunger for God. The hunger for the Eucharist is the sign that you actually dying to self. If you go to communion and you know that you could have lived without communion, then you know communion is not your food. And so what is feeding you? You're feeding from self. Self. That's what is feeding you. So you're eating poison. Because self, what is self? Death. That's what it is. So we eat from the bread of life. So we have to be hungry for Jesus. And if we are not hungry for Jesus, we have to beg the Lord to give us that hunger. Give me hungry for the bread of life. Give me hunger for you, Lord. I want to eat that bread. I want to feed myself with you. I want to stop feeding myself with my self-love, with my love. So I'm going to ask the Lord to give us His words, and we conclude with these words. So He takes me to read to you from Mark 16:14. Later Jesus showed Himself to the 11 while they were at table. He reproached them for their unbelief and stubbornness in refusing to believe those who had seen Him after He had risen. Then He told them, "Go out to the whole world and proclaim the good news to all creation. He who believes and is baptized will be saved. He who refuses to believe will be condemned. Signs like these will accompany those who have believed. In my name they will cast out demons and speak new languages. They will pick up snakes, and if they drink anything poisonous, they will be unharmed. They will lay their hands on the sick, and they will be healed. So then, after speaking to them, the Lord Jesus was taken up into heaven and took his place at the right hand of God. The 11 went forth and preached everywhere, while the Lord worked with them and confirmed the message by the signs which accompanied them. The word of the Lord. So I praise the Lord for all of you, and I thank Myriad for allowing us to be here today and being such an incredible servant of the Lord. Amen.